as we get up with you. Starting right now. Let's go, Sean. Come on, it's been a big week. Shump is ready to go. Mike Tannenbaum's trying to make trades today already. We'll get into that as we go. Inside joke, but it's funny. Vinny Goodwill is here this morning. Jeff Darlington and Dominique Foxworth are up. We are 6 days from the NFL draft, which means when we wake up and do Get Up next Friday, 1 week from today, we'll be talking about round one. So let's make some predictions. Jeff Darlington, my insider extraordinaire. 1 week from this morning, what will we be talking about as the headline from round one of the draft?
Well, Greeny, the vibe across the league is that this is going to be a very trade-heavy first round. We saw 4 trades last year. We saw 5 trades in the first round the year before. We saw 6 the year before that. I could see 6+ in this year's draft. Kansas City Chiefs general manager Brett Veach made very clear that he sees such a bunched evaluation with a number of different positions that's going to cause a lot of jockeying between these GMs. I keep hearing it. We'll see if it proves true, but I think there's going to be a lot of trades in this first round.
Certainly as the first round goes along, I completely agree. We see that. That's the sort of thing he's talking about. But how about at the very top, Mike? Are there players in this class that you could see and teams that make sense to you that could be making deals at the very top of the class? Let's say the top 6 or 7 picks.
Sonny Styles, linebacker, Ohio State. We talked about him all week, and Mel Kiper actually mocked that. He is a rare play, Greeny. Even though he's an off-the-ball linebacker, he's 6'5". He ran 4.46. He could do things you rarely see in terms of his ability to run down the field 20, 30, 40 yards. Some people comp him to Fred Warner. I think that's his ceiling. So could somebody beyond Dallas who's at 12 trade up for him? I think that's one to watch.
Now, Sonny Styles is a player to start watching, I think, at 3. And I think there's almost no chance that he lasts as long as Washington at 7. But then again, crazy things happen all the time. Dominique, you study this stuff. You'll be there next week doing shows. Have you seen a player in this class that you've been studying, that you're ready for, that you say to yourself, that's the guy, if I'm a general manager, I'm going up and getting? Who's the player you think is worthy of giving up a lot of stuff for?
Yeah, I think Reese is that. I think Sonny Styles is obviously a name that I think could change your defense, but for a position that I think we value a little higher, we're projecting Reese, who was an off-the-ball linebacker, moving to edge rusher and impacting the defense. But when you watch his tape, the way that he impacts the offense, because he's kind of unblockable. It appears he's not the heaviest guy in the world, but you still watch him throw big offensive linemen around. He's a guy that projects to be able to impact a game immediately from a bunch of different places. As we move to a league that requires a lot more versatility from defenses, I think a player like that is someone that players could, or that teams will be interested in moving up to acquire.
Darvell Reese, who might go to the Jets. There's a lot of that speculation, but if the Jets take another pass rusher in David Bailey, then maybe Arvell Reese becomes in play, and that's a spot that people try and trade up to get. Let me come back to you, Dominique, then for our second question, or it's the same question, but you're the second person I'll ask it to. When we wake up on Friday morning, what do you think is going to be the headline of Get Up coming out of round one?
I think we're going to be surprised that the Titans decide to pass on Jeremiyah Love. I know we've been mocking Jeremiyah Love to the Titans for a while now. All the big mock drafts suggest that's where he's going to end up. But I find it hard to believe that Robert Saleh is going to pass on one of those defensive players. There are going to be 3 defensive players, I think, on the board. At least one of them still going to be available when it comes to Robert Saleh and the Titans pick right there. I'd be surprised, given the way that we know running back value is impacted by the offensive line and how average running backs you can get for a good price. The impact players on defense for a defensive-minded head coach who's always had great defenses and great defensive lines, if one of those edge rushers is still available, I would be surprised if they decide to stick with the Jeremiyah Love projection.
This is so interesting to me, Jeff Darlington, because all of my draft experts, the people who do the mock drafts because they're studying the players, they're all putting Jeremiyah Love forward to Tennessee. And pretty much all of my insiders are saying that's not what I'm hearing. Now, obviously, this is the season of misinformation. But what is your sense about Love at 4 or wherever else he might go up near the top?
I think the reason you're feeling that, Greeny, is this is the ultimate conundrum for GMs and, quite frankly, the ultimate conundrum across the NFL when it comes to the running back position, both in free agency and in the draft. There is this pressure point between teams trying to value running backs to decide the impact they have on their offense, but when you start to play analytics and Moneyball, you also recognize that it's not always worth it to spend the value, whether it's the money or the draft capital, on a position like running back. These are the positions not necessarily premier when it comes to what you ultimately spend in free agency. We're talking about quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line, defensive end. Running back falls well after those. So now GMs are saying, are we willing to go up and spend this on an impact player, or do we instead need to address those premier positions? It is a tough sell because he is a shiny object for these teams. Somebody's going to jump and get him. The question is who?
Well, I just happen to have a general manager sitting to my left here. So I'll repeat what I just said. All of my draft experts mock him at 4, at worst at 5. A lot of the insiders are telling me that's not what I'm hearing Tennessee at 4. That's not what I'm hearing the Giants at 5. Again, we don't know. These teams are putting out all of this misinformation on purpose. This is that season. I'm not suggesting you did that, but obviously you did. But what is your sense? If you were right now running the Titans or the Giants, would you take the running back that high?
I would, but there's a non-obvious reason, which is it's quarterback development. If we're at Tennessee, this is about developing Cam Ward. If we're at the Giants, it's about developing Jackson Dart. And I think Jeremiyah Love kind of gets pigeonholed into the running back conversation, but he had 63 catches. And when you watch him run route screening, this is an offensive weapon. And when you're developing a young quarterback, there's a couple things you're trying to do. One, lighten the load, actually bring down his attempts early in his career so he can get settled into the offense. But then you're also looking for long handoffs, and that's two things that Jeremiyah loves to do. And as you point out multiple times, he doesn't fumble. He's a great pass protector. So I understand Jeff's point on the analytics, but if the four of us were running a team, what I would push back on and say, on a $300 million salary cap, we're losing the surplus value argument on this player. Let's find it someplace else. There's $300 million in our budget. This player is too unique to pass up.
It's such an interesting point, Dominique, because I keep referring back to this clip that I saw from Mina Kimes on her podcast where she was talking about we always think that a running back is the best way to help a young quarterback with his development, and yet, generally speaking, that hasn't been the case. Maybe you're better off adding an offensive lineman, a tackle like Francis Mauigoa from Miami, who's expected to be the first one drafted here. Better off taking a high-end wide receiver, although I'm not sure there's one in this class that's worth going number 4 overall. How about the argument, Dominique, that if you're the Titans or the Giants, you take the running back because he's going to help you develop your young quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, it's situational, and I think Mina's very smart, which is why she worded it that way. It's about the running back, not the running game. I think if you're asked the same question, the running game itself, having an impactful running game, is the best thing you can do for your quarterback. But the question is, who impacts the running game more, the offensive line or the running back? And the answer to that question, I think most people would agree, is the offensive line. But that's why it comes back to it being situational, because if you have the line, we only have to go back to the Eagles of a couple of years ago to understand that adding a running back, a high-caliber running back to that situation explodes it. And that's when you get back to the Titans. You're like, are they quite ready for that? So I think Mike T is finding a way to rationalize it with the passing game of Love. But ultimately, if you don't have an offensive line that is ready or a team that is ready, throwing Jeremiyah Love, we saw it with Genty last year, throwing Jeremiyah Love, a talented running back, into that situation may not pan out.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Something that struck me is what Mike T said there. When we think about the value, we're talking about money and all that. Part of that with an offensive lineman is because career longevity. With the running back, the reason is because maybe they don't last as long. If you can get your bang for your buck in those first 4 or 5 years out of a running back, you can justify it to the point that Mike is making. I do think that can benefit a quarterback. I kind of agree with Mike here.
So is your sense, because Mike, not only were you an analyst and an evaluator of talent, but you also talked to so many people around the league. When the Giants have finished their selection, when we get to number 6 and the Browns go on the clock, and maybe they trade it, but whatever the case, when we get to 6, do you believe Jeremiyah Love will still be on the board?
I do. My gut is they go defense, although I'm fascinated by what John Harbaugh does because, again, this is his first time running a draft. I think it's going to come down to the best Ohio State defensive player. And Jeremiyah Love, I think it's close, but my gut would say defense.
So Tennessee and the Giants both go defense?
I believe so.
Okay, so which would mean Love would still be there, sitting at 6.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Tennessee, we talk about Robert Saleh, and if the ceiling of Sonny Styles is Fred Warner and you're Robert Saleh and you're in year 1 and you could get the quarterback of your defense for the next 10 years, again, atypical to take an off-the-ball linebacker, but there's a lot of dot connecting there on that.
Okay, fair enough. And so then my final headline comes from you, Mike T. 1 week from this morning, we'll be sitting in these chairs talking about round 1 of the draft, and what will we be saying is the headline?
The Dallas Cowboys stick and pick at 12 and 20. They get 2 good defensive starters, and they meaningfully compete for the NFC East in 2026. Mel Kiper has them trading up. I think they're more than one player away. I think the board will fall their way, and they get two really good players at 12 and 20.
Give me a roughly on who 12 might be. Like, who are you thinking of? As you're making that prediction, who is it you have in your mind at 12?
Mansour Delaney, because I think Kansas City and Cincinnati could go non-cornerback, and I think it could follow them, which would be phenomenal. Greeny, this is by far the best corner in this draft. He could play man-to-man. He has great ball skills. He's competitive. He's physical. I think he's going to be an outstanding player, and I think it's very possible that he is there at 12. And then if you're Dallas, you come back at 20 with Akeem Messidor, Zion Young, you could still get a good pass rusher. But if you can get Mansour Delaney at 12, that is a home run for the Cowboys.
Nick, you're a corner. Have you been watching Mansour Delaney? What do you think?
Absolutely. He's tremendous. I'm surprised that Mike T said he's head and shoulders above, because I think Jeremiah McCoy, even though he didn't play last year, is an excellent prospect. And honestly, I'd be shocked if Delane is still there at 12. I think given that it feels like this draft only really has two kind of guaranteed starting corners at a really high value position, with a lot of teams at the top of the draft that need defense, I really think that the Chiefs are a team I would look at losing almost all of their corners on their roster, not letting Delane or McCoy get past them.
Now, for those of you who've not been following through the process, Mansour Delaney, clean as can be, outstanding defensive back. Tremad McCoy may be more talented, but injury concerns have been a major problem. As Dominique said, he didn't play all of last year. Jeff, finish it up.
I just agree with that thought on the Chiefs. The Chiefs can go so many different directions, and that's the pivot point in this first round. That changes everything when you talk about potentially the Cowboys. What the Chiefs do, and they can go any number of directions, will dictate the following picks after it.
You'll be covering Kansas City for us, if I'm not mistaken, next week. Right, Jeff? So what is the sense that you are getting out there, or from the people that you start talking to about where they're looking at 9? Because I agree with you that they could go either offense or defense, and that will pivot a lot of what happens right after.
Yeah, they are so fascinating because we have a team that's a Super Bowl contender picking so early on, but a team that does have a lot of needs. They can literally go in a number of directions that would satisfy the roster and also get value. So I really don't think that it's easy to project. Brett Veach is going to sit there and wait and see what happens for those first picks before he decides what the best value is, what the best need is, and where those two parts meet.
I could do this forever. I cannot wait for next Thursday. We'll be in Pittsburgh. Coming up, more of this. QB or not QB?